Rube, I had an embarrassing moment today that I waited for the podcast to tell you about.
Appreciate that.
Pulling into the NovaCare complex, security guys out there. He's going to let me through. And I meant to say Happy New Year because we're recording this on New Year's Eve. Happy birthday came out.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the birthday of 2025?
Yeah, man. Because I think like you say the word happy and like normally birthday follows it most often.
I guess.
Yeah. So happy birthday came out and I realized it. And he had this look on his face like, what are you talking? Now, I had a 1 in 365 chance that I nailed it.
No, it's more like 1 in 182 and a half because if it was tomorrow, really yesterday or tomorrow, so
that's
it's really 122.7.
I don't think it was. The look on his face.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to leave the awkward moments in 2024. 2025, smooth sailing.
I think so.
All right. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast brought to you by
podcast of 2024.
By Nissan.
Wow.
He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Yeah, it is. It's fun.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
You a big New Year's guy?
No. You know, I did. I went to Times Square a couple of times when I was far younger, and I think it's something everyone should do once, but nobody would ever want to do twice.
I have no ambition to do that once.
It was interesting. It was we went to a movie. Like everyone's like, well, where do you go to the bathroom if you have to go to the bathroom? We went to a movie that ended at 10, like right around 54th Street, and then we just walked down to maybe like 44th Street for like the ball dropping. It was kind of cool, and and we actually took a subway back to Brooklyn, back to my friend's house, but. It was kind of cool. I was like, I never want to do this again. Then I ended up doing it one other time, but it's definitely like I don't even like being in an elevator with 8 people these days.
Exactly.
But it was definitely a interesting, different experience being around that many people.
Yeah.
Who none of whom were sober.
Yeah, that's a big day for that. Happy New Year to all of our listeners. We appreciate the support all year. We normally do this at the end, but might as well do it right now. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, if you've listened all year, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. If you're going out tonight, please be safe, be responsible. We want to have you listening to us in 2025. We're a weird week here.
Very much.
Eagles getting ready for week 18 against the Giants in a game that means absolutely nothing to their seeding. They are locked in as the number 2 seed. We'll talk about.
I believe the Giants have been eliminated.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean anything to them.
They've been eliminated and almost, did screw up their positioning last week with a big win. They went from, I think, 1st to 4th or 6th in the draft order. So not great for them. Both teams might be trying to lose, or at least one team's going to be trying to lose on Sunday. One team's probably not going to play their starters. That's where we're going to start today. We'll get into some takeaways from the coordinators, our top 10s in this in the NFL, and then we have a bunch of questions. But what do you think is going to happen on Sunday? Do you expect any of the starters to play?
Normally you say no, but the Saquon record thing adds kind of a dimension of intrigue to it. I still think no. If they were going to make a run at the record, and maybe Nick doesn't think this way, but Nick took Saquon out early in the 4th quarter on Sunday against Dallas. If he's thinking to try to get him as close as possible for if he's going to play Sunday, doesn't he leave him in? Now, maybe he just respects McCarthy. I know they get along well. Maybe he just didn't want to run it up. I don't think you run it up by running the ball. So if he gave him 5 more carries, he might have gotten within 50, and then you have a manageable number. I think if he was thinking that way, he would have played longer into that game. I could be wrong, just speculating, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. But Nick is really into the Dickerson thing, and the O-line really wants to do it. I don't know how Saquon really feels. He just says, I'll do whatever the coach wants. I just think I don't like record chasing, and I think you get yourself into, like, he's been a slow starter, relatively slow. I mean, his slow numbers are, make a pretty good year, but what if he's like 11 for 41 in the first half? Now you got to go into the Giants. The Giants don't want him to break the record against them.
I don't know about that.
I mean, he has friends there, but they got pride. They don't want him to trample him. But so what if he goes into the 3rd quarter and he's got 41 yards? Now you got to play him in the second half, and what if he's going into the fourth quarter? He's like 19 for 80. Now you need 20 more. Like, how many carries do you give him? I think it's a little dangerous. I think it's a little risky. If he's playing, other starters have to play. How long do you go? How much of a chance do you give him? I'd be fine not playing him at all. I think he's shown he's the best running back of his generation, or certainly one of the best ever based on the season he's had. If this team has Super Bowl aspirations, which they clearly do, how are you helping your chances to win a Super Bowl by playing guys in a game that doesn't mean anything?
Yeah, you hit a bunch there. I want to go back to last week because I think it's notable that they had such a celebratory moment after he got 2K.
Yeah,
I think that kind of probably was that moment of celebration and a milestone. They called a timeout so that everyone could give him his flowers. He comes out of the game after that. So I think that was probably...
Seemed that way, right?
Yeah, I think that was probably the milestone they were looking for. I know the offensive line was like talking about it, and they knew how close, some of the players knew how close they were to that 2,000 mark. And a lot of their reasoning was, we don't know if we're going to play next week, so we have to get it this week. They could have left him in. He had 31 carries. So if you're worried about like a workload in an individual game, I don't know if that would have made a lot of sense. The one thing I will allow, I don't think if he plays, I don't think it's just all about Saquon and going for the record. I think the only way he would play is if the team looks at it and thinks Jalen Hurts would benefit from getting some time. That's the only way, because that's the only possible logical way to explain it, that it's something that could help the team. If they think Jalen needs some time in this game, which does he?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But you can see, like, that's the one logical way this works, is if they say, we don't want Jalen to basically go 3 weeks without playing because he got hurt so early in the Commanders game, and then
play
have
12
to
snaps.
Then have to play cold in the wild card round. So that's the one thing. If they say we want to get Jalen a couple series, then obviously the starting offensive line is going to be out there to protect the quarterback.
Sure.
At that point, you might as well put Saquon out there, let him run a few times, see if he can break one and get the record.
Yeah, that's probably the only reason the only way it makes sense. We don't even know if Jalen's going to be cleared. You would think he would be. Today's what, Tuesday? Mm-hmm. Still in the protocol.
Actually, we don't know if he's in the protocol.
Well, apparently Cam was on with Elliott last night and said he's still in the protocol. As of last night, he was still in the protocol. So,
I don't know if the center knows all the medical stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, I would think he would. He said on the air. So, but I mean, maybe he's cleared. But that is certainly a part of it. And most guys clear in 2 weeks. But we don't know. The fact that he wasn't even out, we didn't see him in the building. I mean, did you see him at all last week?
Yeah,
never saw him. Did you see him Sunday?
In fairness' sake, we don't see Jalen a ton anyway.
That's when he's 100%. Was he? Do we even know if he was at the game?
I don't believe he was.
Yeah, so that's a question, and I think he would probably be cleared. But the next hint we'll get will be at practice Wednesday. Certainly, Nick's not going to tell us anything at his presser, which is before practice. So we'll see. But my hunch is that Nick isn't going to think Jalen needs the work, and that the starters won't play. And I think you raise a great point about that 2,000 was the goal. And I mean, it seemed like that was the finish line to me.
Yeah, it had that feel of it. Even the timeout was, you don't see that a ton. You see that in like the NBA in some moments. You see like baseball will stop for a milestone. It doesn't happen a ton in football.
Yeah.
So that acknowledgement of that moment, I think, clues you in a little bit.
Yeah. The
Jalen thing is the only reason I'm not like pretty convinced. I'm pretty convinced, but it's the only reason I'm not 100% that I think they'll rest the starters. Yeah. And you have to remember, early bye week this year. It was a week 5 bye. They've played 12 straight weeks.
Yeah, they have.
Lane Johnson was kind of the most realistic after the game. Jordan Mailata talking about wanting to play for the record. AJ Brown talking about wanting to play for the record. Landon Dickerson on radio kind of pushing to play for the record. 34-year-old Lane Johnson, who's got a lot of mileage on him after the game, was talking about better to be safe than sorry. Ultimately, I think the rest is the better play for them long term.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
It makes for fun fodder in a week where, let's be honest, there's not a ton to really talk about.
Sure.
But ultimately,
Saquon's got 345 carries this year. A lot of carries. What's the minimum it would take him to get 101?
2.
What's the realistic minimum? I mean, I don't know. I mean, even if he's averaging, 8 yards a carry, you're still looking at 15 carries. So,
but with him, he does have the ability to break one.
He does,
and he can chop it down quick. Now, most of those big runs have come late in games, but he had one relatively early in the Commanders game.
Yeah, it ruined his first half, second half stats. Well, and then you look at what are the chances he gets hurt. Like, I don't want to put a number on it, but guys get hurt, and the more you play, the more you get hurt.
And I think an important part about this is you're not just risking his health. You're risking the health of all 5 offensive linemen,
sure,
who, by the way, are offensive linemen. They've been banged up this year. McKee Becton had to come out of the game last week. Landon Dickerson is always playing through something. Cam Jurgens is in his first year as a starter at center. Like he's, I'm sure, dealing with some stuff. Lane's 34. Jordan Mailata missed time earlier in the year. Like, you're not just risking injury for the player going for the record. You're risking injury for everyone on the field.
Yeah, and it's not even just whether they get injured, but just the wear and tear. And after 12 straight weeks of playing, there's no question these guys need a break. So that's what I expect to happen.
Yeah, and look, if Jalen doesn't need the time, they're probably not going to play Kenny Pickett.
Right. With
the ribs injury, you're going to let those heal a little bit. That's why I'm excited about this game. We might see a full game of Tanner McKee.
Yeah, it'll be fun. He's a fun guy to watch. And, man, I've been I think we both have been high on him since we first saw him, like as a rookie at OTAs and training camp. He's just got something, and I think he's going to be a player in this league for a long time. For him to come in that game and do what he did and throw 4 passes and 2 of them were long touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, if he throws 30 passes
15
in this game, 15 touchdowns, that's the way it works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If he continues at his current pace, he'll have, have like 1,700 yards. I'm really curious, like, how his career is going to go. I don't get too far ahead of ourselves, but some teams will develop a young guy and trade him. I mean, and I think he would have some value, especially if he plays well Sunday.
It's a big boost for the quarterback factory.
Why didn't he get drafted higher? I guess he just didn't play much at Stanford. I know they weren't very good. I mean, he wasn't a big time prospect.
Yeah, I don't know. He has a lot of the things you're looking for. He has the height. He has the motion. He can make all the throws. He seems to have a quick processor.
Yeah,
we saw that in the summer, and it was kind of amazing to me, like how much quicker he was able to pick up the offense than Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and
that's not even a shot at Kenny. Like, I think it does take most guys time to learn a new offense, but it was very clear early. I think Kenny got better as the summer went on a little bit, but early on, Tanner just seemed to have a better grasp of the offense.
Stanford Pitt. I mean,
oh man,
no, and we talked about that. I remember talking about that during the summer, and Kenny did eventually pick it up, and you could see that on Sunday. I thought he played really well.
Did he pick it up?
Yeah, pick it up. Yeah, that's Dave's.
Can he pick it up?
Best joke of 2024. What will his best joke of 2025 be? Yeah, they. I wonder if I guess Ian Book would be too.
And they'd probably have Pickett dressed.
Yeah,
not playing.
Yeah, interesting.
Or maybe Jalen dressed and not playing.
Could be.
One guy's got broken ribs. You probably don't play him.
The other guy's coming off a concussion. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hand the football off.
Yeah. It's all interesting to me, but I sure wouldn't mind watching Kenny Pickett for 3 hours Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Tanner
McKee. God, why do I? Backup quarterbacks, seen one, seen them all.
That's not true. But it was amazing with Tanner. Like the first time we saw him last year in OTAs, you're okay. There's something there.
Yeah.
And we've seen other day 3 quarterbacks come in here, and it's not like that. It's sometimes you can just tell if they have something worth developing or not.
Yeah.
And there've been some that come in here and you go, uh-oh, that's not it. That's not going to work.
You want to mention any names?
And we don't need to.
Okay.
I think people kind of know who we're talking about. And you can tell pretty quick. With Tanner, it was like, oh, no, there's something there.
Yeah.
And every time we've gotten a chance to see more, I'm even more intrigued.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would explore the thought of trading Kenny Pickett in the offseason. He has 1 year left on his rookie deal. I think that he showed something last week. You can tell another team like, hey, the reason we traded for him, we weren't exactly sure what we had in this young third stringer, but now we think he's ready to be the 2. Will you give us a early day 3 pick for Kenny Pickett?
I say no, but we'll give you a late day 2 pick for Tanner McKee. I think Tanner's probably got more value.
I agree with that, but you might want him.
Yeah. Oh, you do. I wouldn't trade him. He's untouchable to me.
Well, I don't know if he's untouchable.
Well, maybe somebody offers a 1. Yeah. I don't know how the league looks at Pickett. I certainly think he helped himself. But yeah, I would certainly look into that.
Mm-hmm.
If I got an offer, I mean, would you take a 5 for him?
For Pickett?
Yeah.
Conditional. I'd put conditions on that pick because I think a team
5 that could become a 4.
Yeah, I think there's a path where like a team has him as the veteran potential stopgap quarterback for a rookie who might not be ready to play. So if he ends up playing a lot, I want more for that. I want more for the player.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The cool thing we heard after the game on Sunday about Tanner McKee was that he's gotten the defense so much better. So if we're going to give him credit for that, he deserves a lot of it. This defense has been unbelievable this year.
Yeah, and I think the Washington game was the first time you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And then obviously it was an undermanned Dallas team, but I just like the way they play. They play together. They play as a unit. And I mean, we've talked about how they have some guys who are kind of have star production. I mean, Jalen Carter, certainly, and Zach Bond. But they're not going to, a Pro Bowl team comes out Thursday. They're not going to have a bunch of like 6 Pro Bowlers on the number 1 defense in the league, because the strength of the defense is the group and the togetherness and the fundamentals, chemistry, and the fact that there's no, I mean, I think CJ deserves it. The voting was before he had 2 more interceptions. The voting ended before.
By the way, CJ Gardner-Johnson, NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Yeah. Who else has won that this year?
Zach Bond.
Zach Bond won it early.
And then Saquon has won a bunch of the offensive.
He's won 13 of them.
Brady Mann got a special teams in there as well.
Yeah, that was not for the Washington game.
No.
But I did some research this morning because the Eagles, you think back to this Eagles defense last year, and I mean, half the starters aren't even in the league. Not half, but a good bunch of them aren't playing anymore. And you know the names, but I think Howie just did a terrific job. Obviously, drafting the 2 D-backs in the first 2 rounds, but bringing CJ back, and other guys have gotten better. Just the progress we've seen with Nakobe, with Nolan, made big jumps. These guys weren't starters before. I mean, how many guys on this defense never started before? Jalen Carter wasn't even a starter. And then Zach Bond, who's their best player, wasn't even an off-ball linebacker, and was in another scheme entirely. So I think Howie and Vic certainly had a say in it, just to bring all these new pieces in and mix them in with Slay and the other holdover guys, Jordan Davis and Sweat. It just worked. It just worked from the get-go. And the fact that how often do you see a defense where there's no weak link? Like, who's their 11th best defensive starter? I don't even. Jordan Davis.
If he's a starter, probably the defensive tackle that's not Jalen Carter, whether that's Milton or.
Well, I mean, Jordan Davis has been starting.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually the only guy to start every game the last 2 years on the entire team. Interestingly,
so be Jordan Davis.
Who's fine.
Yeah,
he's might have been overdrafted, but he's been fine. So I did some research, since they were ranked 30th last year in points allowed, and they're now 3rd, and they were ranked 26th in yards allowed. And the league considers yards as number 1 defense. That's just the way it is.
The traditional stats. Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked up, has any team ever been ranked 26? They were 26 last year in yards allowed to 1st. And it's never happened. The biggest jump ever was the 98 Chargers. They were 21st to 97, and they this is the biggest jump to number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And they led the league in 98. And I guess that was Junior Seau in that group. The Steelers in 89 were 19th and jumped to first in 90. And the Bengals went from 18th to first from 82 to 83, the strike year in 82. So by far the biggest jump to number one ever, which says a lot about Howie and the personnel he brought in, and certainly Vic and the players to, I think they, after the way last year ended, everybody on that defense, really everybody on the team who's coming back, really took it to heart we got to get better and be in better shape, which I think is a big part of the turnaround. You see guys playing a lot more snaps and being able to handle it. I mean, Jalen Carter, it was a knock on him that he couldn't play a full game. He doesn't miss a snap now, which is amazing. So then I looked up the biggest jumps regardless of where they ended up. So the biggest ever was the 2002 Panthers went from 31st to 2nd, jumped 29 spots. And I'm sure I'll have a chart somewhere in a story somewhere, but the Eagles jump from 26th to 1st is the eighth biggest ever. So, and the biggest since the Jets a few years ago went from 32nd to 4th. Pretty interesting. They had that one year they had a really good defense. But bottom line is it's almost unprecedented improvement and the biggest improvement ever for a number one defense.
Yeah, the one place we didn't, or like the one area we didn't give enough credit to probably was the player development staff, which, is kind of behind the scenes a little bit. We don't talk about it a ton. Connor Barwin, a big cog in that. Matt Leo for the defensive lineman, and really everyone, a big cog in that. Everyone's gotten better. And it's beyond just the players that you expect to get better. Like you mentioned some of those guys, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean in that, but like even the good players got better. I think across the line, they've gotten improvement from every single player on that defense, not just from last year to this year, but during the course of this season, they're developing these players. And that's a tough thing to do. And it's tough to parse out the credit there because some of it goes to the players, some goes to the coaches, some goes to the player development staff. But I think that's a really good sign. And it's hard for me to remember another situation where like every single player is just getting better year over year and throughout the season.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And I think everybody deserves some credit. And I really think that their fitness level is a big part of it because this was not a fit team at the end of last year. I mean, they, especially with the bye being so long ago, they physically been able to handle everything. And they're a more physical group. I think that was a big focus during the offseason, bringing in, I mean, how many times does Nick talk about physical? Yeah. If they're going to bring new guys, they're going to be physical players. And they are. I mean, even Slay's running around and hitting people.
Yeah.
He used to do that.
It's like a mindset of this team on offense and defense.
Yeah, that's true. I had a 27.
It's that Bobby King saying that a bunch of people have used: when in doubt, choose violence. And that's what they're doing.
It's a little scary, but it's a good saying.
It's a good saying for football players. Not if you're like working in an office somewhere.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's impressive stuff, and you can't underestimate the impact that Vic's had. And you hear the stuff out of Miami last year. It's like those guys. Look, I wasn't there, but anybody complaining about Vic just didn't want to put in the work.
And the thing was, they were having success until they got really injured.
Yeah,
they lost a lot of good players, but that was a good defense early in the year.
Yeah, and everywhere he's gone has improved. The defense has improved. Usually, it's not till the second year, and it takes a big jump. But he's just really good, and what a great hire.
Yeah. Speaking of Vic, we had a chance to talk to him and the other coordinators today on Tuesday, New Year's Eve. Takeaways from Vic. What do you got?
It's funny. He was asked about, what went into the defense improving during the bye week. That's kind of when everything changed, and he's kind of put in a tough position because obviously I just asked him about Avante and how he's handled the whole year, but that was it. He mentioned Cooper. That's when we started playing Cooper, and that was such a pivotal moment for this defense. It was the right time to do it. So he talked about that a bit. I asked him if the number one ranking meant anything to him. He kind of played it down. He said that the players like that. I think it's got to mean something to him.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, resume resume builder right there. Not that he's going to be applying for a lot
I don't think
of jobs.
his resume is hurting.
No, but it's impressive. And yeah.
He said Avante's earned the right to be the third safety, which, for most of the year has been Tristan McCollum. I think there's, I've gotten a lot of questions about Sidney Brown and why he's not that guy. I don't really know the answer to that, but it's going to be Avante going into the playoffs. And we've seen Reed Blankenship. We've seen CJ Gardner-Johnson leave games this year. So there's a chance Avante's going to have to play some snaps.
Yeah, and I probably feel better with him out there than Tristan McCollum, who did not play well 2 weeks ago when he had to go in. When CJ was suspended. Avante, Vic spoke really highly of him. Talked about what a great teammate he is. Said he's a fantastic teammate. He said the guys who replaced him, he's helped, meaning, McCollum and, the other safeties, he's a versatile guy.
I know Cooper DeJean has always talked about, even Quinyon Mitchell back in the summer when we thought maybe he was going to play some nickel.
Yeah.
Both of those guys have just raved about how much Avante is willing to help them.
Yeah. I think he's handled this year well. And it's had to be, it's got to be hard. You've been the slot for so long. You're the slot the first month. He did not play well. But I would have more. This guy's been here since 2018. He's one of the longest standing Eagles. He was released and re-signed, but I would have more faith in him than certainly a young, inexperienced guy. And I don't know if he was totally healthy early, Avante. He just didn't seem right,
That might be.
It might just be
who he is now.
It might be who he is now, but hopefully he doesn't have to play. Is the bottom line. But he's handled the year really well, I think.
Some other stuff from Vic.
And he's been good on special teams.
Yeah, he definitely has. He's filled in some big moments there too.
Yeah, and he downed that punt at the 1 inch line.
Mm-hmm.
They almost scored anyway, but
Vic was very complimentary of Nick Sirianni.
He was,
and I understand that people are going to be, what's he going to say in a public setting? He went farther than he needed to.
Yeah,
and Vic's not going to do that just to do it. He talked about how well Nick has kind of managed the team all year, and I believe him when he says that.
Yeah, well, he's not a BSer, so I believe everything he says. I don't think he's lied to us once this year, which is unusual. Yeah, he did. He, like, most of Vic's answers are very interesting and illuminating, but they're very short.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was asked about Nick, and it was a good question, was it Bo Wolf or Zach?
I don't remember.
But you always remember that stuff. You always remember who asked the questions. Yeah, he went out of his way to give a thoughtful, in-depth answer. It's a guy he didn't know coming in, and I think that's important. Like Nick gets a lot of heat from.
Well, he knew him.
He knew him. He'd been here, but not in this role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he didn't spend the whole year here in 22 either. He was here at the end. We still don't even know when he started. He just kind of there was a practice one day, but I think when Nick has taken so much grief, some of it deserved, certainly. But look, the guy can coach. It's clear when you look at the record, and he's got the 5th highest record in history, and he gets a lot of heat for stuff that I think is undeserved. And he's not a terrible coach. He's a good coach. And hearing a guy like Vic come out and say that kind of stuff, I think is valuable. It's important.
Yeah.
Well, you're smirking at something.
Nick just doesn't help himself a lot of times.
No, I totally agree. That's why I think it's important that he, man, our colleague in Washington, man, he hates him. Our former colleague, I guess, technically. But I see why. He's one of those guys, if he's not your coach, you're going to hate him. The faces he makes, the comments he makes. If I was a photographer, man, I would just like
follow Nick.
Yeah, he makes those, can I say WTF faces?
He does.
Yeah. So I can see why he's disliked by a lot of people, but his players love him, and that's all that matters.
Some other notes from Vic Fangio. Asked him about Bryce Huff, played 14 snaps. Said he looked rusty. Hopefully he'll be able to build on it and give them something in the playoffs. I think he's going to be the 4th man in that rotation.
He has to be.
But I think he's going to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think he'd be the 4th man. And
I don't know. Maybe 3rd.
Maybe.
Over Jalix Hunt.
If I would think he would play a ton if he's healthy enough on Sunday and try to knock that rust off. No matter who else is playing.
Yeah, I think he's going to play.
I mean, and Vic said, it's not like at college you have 100 guys you can play 22 backups. You can't.
Yeah, that's a good point. In general, when we're talking about the starters, like even the offensive line, like they don't have enough backups to just play. You only have 2 elevations. So there are going to be some guys who have to play, especially like those rotational positions on defense.
Yeah. You'll see regulars out there. There should be a rule that if you're playing one of those meaningless type games, that both teams can elevate unlimited practice squad guys.
I don't think the NFL wants to do that because they're trying to sell tickets to these games.
I'm going to bring that up with the competition committee.
Yeah. And they'll go, Roger says we want to make some money here.
But the tickets are already sold. It's not like there's like a walk-up for an NFL game.
Yeah, but they want to try to ensure the highest level possible.
It's crazy that used to happen, isn't it? You could just walk up to the vet and buy a ticket.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not that crazy. It happens in every other sport.
Can you imagine walk up at the link?
It's hard to imagine it now.
Yeah. But like
there's some stadiums in this league you can do that.
Yeah, probably.
Anything else from Vic?
No.
Oh, the one other thing I wanted to mention, he was asked about Nakobe Dean, and first off, he said that the reason Oren Burks and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. split reps is because they haven't played a ton this year, and they both have big roles on special teams. So they just wanted to make sure their snap counts didn't get too high. But the other thing, he went out of his way to praise Nakobe, and he said, like Zach Bond's getting all the accolades and the praise, and he deserves it. But Nakobe's played great this year.
Yeah,
and I think that's important. Like we do lose sight of Nakobe a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to because he's a fun player to watch. He's physical. He's around the ball. He's smart. He's instinctive. And I mean, if we had to name a most improved player on the team, maybe it would be Nolan.
Probably be Nolan.
But I mean, Nakobe, you think about it, like he started 4 games and didn't make a play last year. He didn't make a play, and he makes a play at like a couple plays, big plays every game. I guess it would be Nolan. It would be one of those Georgia guys. But
Nakobe, it's tough. Like maybe Zach Bond, but he hasn't in play.
Yeah. Those awards are weird. But yeah, I think Nakobe's come so far, and a lot of people were down on him after last year, which I understand the injury. And yeah, he did not play well early, but man, he's been really good. And when I say a fun player to watch, I'm just talking about a guy who's he's always around the ball. He's always doing something. And Nolan's the same way. Those guys are so active and physical. It's just fun to.
They have a lot of rally to the ball guys.
Yeah. And the Georgia guys all share that. I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk to that group about how much fun it's been. Like I remember you asked one of them, it might have been, or you might have asked Howie, I think, after they drafted all the Georgia guys. So last year, not Jordan Davis, but you asked them like how much their friendship and their knowing each other and playing together at Georgia can help them on this level. I think that was your question. I remember who asked the questions. And we're kind of seeing that, I think. We're kind of seeing that come to fruition now. I mean, they do play well together, and I think their history together does help them. And unfortunately, most of them don't really talk that often, so it's hard to do that story. That'd be a Super Bowl week story. Nakobe would be the only guy you could talk to.
Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
Any big takeaways from him today?
No.
I thought
there's a lot of records in sports.
I thought he did say that. I thought his perspective on Saquon's season was worthwhile. And he talked about like the moment and what it was like to be on the sideline for that.
Yeah, he was like the first guy he went up to.
Yeah.
I think Kenny was first and he was second.
But he talked about Saquon being such a team player. And you asked about Saquon's relationship with the offensive line, which is unique.
Yeah.
And we talked about that a little bit, I think, on the postgame pod. Like he's part of the present buying with Jalen Hurts. Like he's always shouting those guys out. There's that very funny photo of the offensive line and Saquon and Landon Dickerson is holding him up.
Yeah.
Like a toddler. Very good. But no, I think that is a special relationship.
With no strain, just holding up.
Yeah. I sent out a really stupid tweet that kind of went like viral, and that's just all my mentions now.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that photo?
Yeah.
What did you write? Like, why is Jack Driscoll in this picture?
No, Jack's a big part of it. Basically, like Saquon is 233 pounds, and Landon is holding him like a toddler.
Yeah, he was. I didn't mean to throw shade at Jack Driscoll.
Yeah, Jack's like, I was enjoying this podcast until then.
Yeah. The relationship between Saquon and the O-line really is special, and I almost think of them as one unit. In a way, just they love blocking for him and they love playing with him. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the obvious one is that he's always giving them credit, and any O-line is going to like that. But I just think he shares a mentality up to the game with them, just that physicalness. Doesn't want to come out of the game, goes hard every play. Team guy. There's just like a symbiotic relationship there. Yeah. It's really cool.
A bunch of questions about Tanner McKee and what they've seen behind the scenes. And the one thing I'm always curious about is the evaluation process for a player who's running scout team.
Yeah.
But I think this is something Nick's kind of perfected, is getting them these developmental periods to run their offense or their defense.
So valuable.
It's valuable because you're trying to evaluate these guys. Like, are they getting better? Are they starting to understand the scheme better? And when they're running scout team, you really don't get to see that. They're just servicing the offense or defense.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure how common that is. And, the CBA limits how long you can be out there. So you can't they can't be out there for an hour. So it's not a lot of time at the end of practice. You don't have that much, but you talk to any of the young guys, they just think it's so valuable for them. And I'm not sure where he picked that up, where that started.
I think it was Indianapolis.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. He brought it with him.
Interesting. Maybe the Colts should be doing more of it. Shane's having a tough year out there.
Not going great.
Yeah, not going great.
Yeah.
I think that is really valuable.
Michael Clay, any takeaways?
He talked about the switch kickoff guys, and we wouldn't really get into who's going to do it. But I mean, why wouldn't you have Jake Elliott do it? I thought it was really encouraging how well he kicked. And I mean, if there was any question about his leg strength, I mean, he was, and obviously it was a warmer day, but how do you go back? And
I think this is the first time that they admitted that Braden being a potential tackler factored in.
That was interesting. Yeah.
And we've seen him make some plays.
Yeah, he did say he's a bigger guy if you need him to make a tackle. You don't want Jake out there trying to make tackles.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to.
I mean, he would do it, but man, you can't get your kicker hurt. You get your punter hurt.
You don't want to get your punter hurt either.
But I'd rather, if you're going to lose one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easier to find a punter than a kicker. But yeah, I would guess that they'd stick with it. I thought Jake did a tremendous job. And like Michael said, Kavontae Turpin only got his hands on the ball twice, and the one was a long one, 69 yards, but there was a clear holding that opened up the hole for him. It was a tremendous job by him.
Yeah, it was good. Some Sidney Brown questions.
Yeah.
He got into a wrestling match toward the end of that fourth quarter. I kind of get his perspective on it because he got hit by, and there were two guys. I mean, you probably don't want to body slam somebody into the tunnel. He's probably going to get a nice little fine for that one. But I do like his aggression.
I do too. Yeah.
You can add him to the list of guys where they have to harness the aggression.
Yeah. But I think he just brings so much to that unit, and those are important guys to have, and he's good. I mean, he's good too. He's not just the energy guy, but man, he plays hard. He goes 100% all the time. And I still think he's going to be a good safety in the league one day. I wonder if that was a pretty serious injury he had. I wonder if, sometimes it takes like 2 years to get your speed back. Maybe that factors into him not playing safety. Maybe he's just not there yet as far as movement or,
that straight line speed is there at least.
Yeah, we've seen that. Yeah. But the cutting is, just turning, and I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing him out there, but it's not going to happen.
Probably get a chance on Sunday.
Probably will. Yeah.
There will be exciting reasons to watch Sunday's game.
I like these games, and I like seeing those guys who don't get a chance to play.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. What's the over/under on Tyrion Davis Price carries?
Well, they're going to have to elevate him. I don't know if they're going to use the elevation on him. They have to figure that out. That's the tricky thing. You only get 2 elevations in this game.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to handle that.
Maybe Jalen goes on IR. No, probably not.
No, I don't think so.
That was a joke.
All right, let's take a break. We have our top 10s.
Oh, yeah.
Power rankings coming up on the other side and a bunch of questions from you guys.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. Top 10 power rankings. Rube, let's just get into it. Who do you have at number 1?
Well, my top 6 all won. So I didn't move anybody up or down. I got the Bills, Chiefs at the top.
Yeah, so I think we probably both stayed the same toward the top. And last week I had the Chiefs 1, Lions 2. I still have that. I have Eagles 3, Bills 4.
I have Lions 3, Vikings 4, Eagles 5, just because that's how I had them lined up.
I think those top 5 teams
are,
you can argue the position, but I think it's pretty inarguable that those are the top 5 teams in the league.
Yeah, I think that's true. You have 100 people do power rankings. You're not going to have any other team in the top 5. I mean, who else? Yeah, there's nobody else who could be.
I mean, you could say like the Ravens because you really trust Lamar, but I mean, the record isn't there. They've lost some games they shouldn't have lost this year.
All those 5 teams have at least 13 wins. No one else in the league has more than 11 wins.
Yeah.
So
there's a disparity there.
Demarcation.
I like that. That's a good word. The Vikings impressed me against the Packers. I thought the Packers were going to win that game. So, I give the Vikings credit. I've kind of been a naysayer a little bit with them all year. And look, I still have them 5th out of those 5 teams, but they're impressing me. Like it's tough to argue it now. You in 14 games. It's not a fluke.
Yeah, and that was a good win. And both those teams are a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Packers and Vikings, but they've won 9 straight, and they're winning in a lot of different ways. Their quarterback's playing really well, so they're dangerous.
Now, I'm very intrigued to hear your bottom of the top 10 here, because we're going to get into the potential 2 teams the Eagles might play in the wild card round. So who's your 6th team?
I went Ravens up from 7 to 6.
Okay, and I kept the Ravens. Oh, no, I went Ravens up from 7 to 6 as well.
Okay. They killed the Texans 11-3 since starting out 0-2. And then I went Packers.
Me too.
I went Packers 7.
Yeah, I went Packers 7 and Commanders 8.
Same.
Okay, so we both think the Packers are just maybe a touch ahead of the Commanders. Those are the 2 teams.
Well, you go ahead.
The 2 teams, the Eagles, they'll face one of them in the wild card round.
Yeah, and I had the Commanders 9, and I had the Packers 6 before they lost to the Vikings. I didn't want to move Commanders up too much. But they're impressive, and the Eagles are going to have to contend with them for a long time in this division, which is fine.
Yeah. So let me run through it real quick. Basically, we don't know who their opponent's going to be. Most likely, it will be the Packers. In Week 18, there's the outcomes that would lead to the Packers is Washington beats the Cowboys or Green Bay loses to Chicago. The only way the Eagles will get the Commanders is if Washington loses to Dallas and Green Bay beats Chicago. Basically, Green Bay would then jump up into the 6th seed, and the Commanders would be 7 at that point.
And that's a tough 2-6. I mean, that's a tough matchup. The Packers are dangerous. Certainly not unbeatable. Eagles beat them in opening day. Close game. That's a tough game. That's a tough matchup. You win 13 or 14 games. Yeah, you feel like you should, at least in that first wild card round, at least have a 9-8 team or something.
Yeah. So if you're the Eagles, you would rather face the Commanders?
I think so.
I definitely would.
Yeah.
And that's not, I mean, look, I think if the Eagles play at their best, they're going to beat all these teams. I think
they almost beat the Commanders with their backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it took like a wacky, wild bunch of sequence of events for them to lose that football game.
Sequence of events. yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No,
though.
I know it doesn't.
Okay.
So all right, so I got Packers 7, Commanders 8, and then I finished with Rams, Chargers.
I have the reverse of that, Chargers, Rams.
Okay. Yeah, Rams are playing well. They won 4 straight, 8-2. They were 1-4. Were they 0-4 or 1-4? I think they were 1-4. But yeah, so we're kind of the Steelers dropped out of my top 10.
Same.
Okay.
I was having a tough time buying the Steelers earlier in the year. Then they beat the Ravens, and you go, well,
yeah,
you got to have them in there.
I wonder if they have another first round loss. Is Tomlin in any trouble?
No.
They haven't won a playoff game in a long time.
No.
Okay. He stays as long as he wants. Coach for life?
Not coach for life, but
it's been 18 years. When was the last time they won a playoff game? Was it 16?
Yeah. I mean, he's not getting canned after this year.
Okay. They lost 3 straight down the stretch.
He's not getting canned. That's not the way they operate.
No, they keep coaches for a long time.
Yeah. And they've had really good ones.
Their last playoff win was, wow. Yeah, it was 2016. Yeah, they've lost 4 straight wild card games. Well, one was a conference semifinal. They lost 5 straight playoff games.
Mm-hmm. Do you actually think he's in danger?
I don't know.
He's not.
Okay.
Anything else on this top 10?
No.
All right, let's get to your questions.
Before we do questions, can I just say one thing? I have a really cool stats column this week. And if you're into this kind of thing, I write about stats, Eagle stats, every Tuesday. I just wanted to share one real quick.
Okay.
The Eagles outscored the Cowboys in their 2 games by 62 points. It's the most points the Cowboys have ever been outscored by any opponent ever in a season. Obviously, division opponent.
Sure.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
So I have a lot of stuff like that. And A.J. Brown, first Eagle ever to catch a touchdown from 3 different quarterbacks in 3 straight games. A different quarterback in each game. So it can't be 3 in one game. And kudos to John Clark for thinking of that and noticing it. And kudos to Katie at Sports Reference for doing a custom search and getting that for us.
It's good. I like that Clarky's giving you homework now.
He is. I texted him. I said, I'll have that by tomorrow. I'm like, oh, my God, what did I just agree to? But, yeah.
That's a good one.
Good stuff.
If you have a question for us, it's eagle-eye at NBC Uni. That's NBCUNI.com. We have that QR code on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can scan it and send us a question that way. Some fun ones today. Let's get into it. First one from Nicholas. I vote war.
Oh, Emory?
Yeah, so if you missed the last podcast, there's an Eagle Eye podcast. What was it? Emory
University
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Here's another one from Brian. Guys, there cannot be another Eagle Eye podcast. It's time to declare war on these measly college kids. What has anyone from Emory College ever done anyway? Let's take them down.
Well, one of my best friends in high school, Phil Gura, who I worked with at the Hilton Hotel in Rye, New York. We were housemen. And he went there.
What's that mean?
He went there?
No, housemen?
We were housemen at a hotel. You ever work in a hotel?
No.
The housemen, we had giant laundry bins, and we basically, the housemaids would leave the sheets in the hallway, and we would pick them up and take them down to the laundry room.
No, I don't think I'd like that.
Yeah. Well, so both our colleges were on a system where we didn't get out of school until like the middle of June.
Ooh.
And there were no jobs for like college students left. So we drove over to the Rye-Town Hilton up in north of New York and they had jobs. They're like, what are we going to be doing? They're like, you're not going to like it, but you'll have a job and you get free lunch. And I once brought towels to the Tom Seaver's wife at the Rye-Town Hilton. She needed towels. So yeah, you would do you would like, whatever guest needed. You were like a
gopher?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad job because we had to start at like 6:30, so you're done by like 2:30.
Justin, hey Dave and Rube, as an Eagles fan from Atlanta,
how do we end up talking about these things? Okay,
I'm more than interested in going into a disguise and infiltrating Emory University and befriending the Eagle Eye podcast.
I like it.
My glasses and mustache disguise combo is ready.
What's his name?
Justin.
Justin, you're hired.
Okay.
We got.
I do want to mention.
Going to fight him from the inside.
Well, let's be nice to the other Eagle Eye podcast. Don't hurt their podcast.
No, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt their podcast.
I do want to scare them a little.
It's all in. All right. You can scare them a little bit. We'll send Big Dom to knock on the door and spook them a little bit. But no, don't actually do anything.
He would do it too.
There's a question from Justin as well. With BG going down, what do you think are the chances Vic can convince him to run it back with our stacked roster, or should we just use his cap space to pay Zach Bond and McKee back?
Talking about bringing BG back next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's BG's call. He was playing really well. I think they really miss him. I kind of feel like it's not going to happen. I think there was a point in the middle of the season where he was considering it. I could be wrong, but I mean, they could certainly use him. We'll see what happens with Sweat. His contract's up, and they could certainly use the help. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah,
I think they'll get past this season and kind of see where he's at, see what the team structure is, like if they would need him, how it would work.
Yeah, I mean, you have to see what they're going to draft and who they're going to sign, and I mean, he also, I don't even know when he'd be ready. Like. I don't know.
The good thing is he's not going to go play anywhere else.
No,
so it's not like you have to decide on March, whatever free agency starts. Like
he's not going to go sign with the Seahawks.
You can go figure it out.
Yeah.
Next question is from Luca. Dave and Rube, I just watched the opening kickoff and Elliott was kicking off. What are your thoughts? We already talked about this, but I just love that Luca was emailing us after the opening kickoff on Sunday. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Ryan. Hey, Rube and Dave, quick MVP question since Rube is a voter. Curious as to whether he's Team Lamar or Team Josh Allen, or do Saquon / Burrow have a shot to get his vote if either Saquon breaks the record or if Burrow makes the playoffs? For me, I like Lamar, but I'd like to hear what you guys think. Thank you.
Yeah. Boy, it's a tough one because Burrow has been incredible.
It's his best season.
Yeah. And one of the best seasons. I mean, Lamar and Burrow are both having among the best. It's kind of like Saquon and Derrick Henry. Henry fell off a little bit, but there was a point where they were both having like two of the best seasons ever by running backs. And Burrow and Lamar are doing that. I'm still leaning toward Lamar, but man, it's hard to ignore Burrow. And then I think
Josh Allen's been incredible.
He's been incredible. And so is Jared Goff. I know you're not a big Goff guy, but I mean, every game he's thrown for like 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Other than the one game, he barely has any interceptions. Just had 5 that game. He's probably not, if I had a top 5, he'd probably be in the top 5.
At 5.
At 5. Yeah. Right now, I'm probably thinking Lamar, then Burrow, then.
I think Josh Allen's going to win it.
I think Lamar's going to win it.
Really?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, has anybody been more valuable to their team than Jaden Daniels? Like to their team?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a fair question.
I mean, he's really getting rid of Snyder and him have turned that franchise around. Given that that franchise was dead for 20 years. So you think about like what really is an MVP, and he's not going to get it. I'm not going to vote for him, but he'd be in my conversation. But
how does it work for voting? If you can bring people in, is it just you get one vote, or do you like have a top 3?
I think we have for MVP for those awards. I think we'd vote for a top 3,
and then it's like
in order. And
it's tabulated based on the number.
Yeah, I'll let you know on
So there's
Thursday,
a chance that like the guy who finishes with the most first place votes does not win.
It's unlikely,
but
there's a chance.
Okay. Because I really do think it's close this year.
Yeah.
And it's funny because early in the year when we were talking about Saquon potentially winning it, it was because there hadn't been a quarterback to really separate themselves. And now you have 3 quarterbacks who have separated themselves.
I mean, 2 weeks ago, Saquon was like really in the mix, and then he runs for 150 and 167 and he drops. So that tells you how hard it is for a running back.
Do you think it hurt him to see the Eagles offense without Jalen? Does it hurt his showing his value that it suffered so much without the quarterback?
No, because I think it helps him. Because it just shows how much he means to this team and this offense.
Well, I'm saying without Jalen, like the offense struggled against the Commanders. Now they're obviously better last week.
He scored 33 points.
Okay.
And he had a 68-yard touchdown. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. It's just sad that one of those four guys, Lamar, Burrow, Saquon, and Josh Allen, isn't going to be in the top three. And that's just a really tough call. Well, how would you rank your top three? Who would you have out of those four?
Man, it's tough. Maybe Burrow, and which is crazy because he's playing
like 8 straight games with 3 touchdowns and 300 yards.
He's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think I would go Josh Allen, Lamar, Saquon, Burrow.
Wow. Yeah.
But I don't think there's it's fun to argue. There's going to be deserving guys who don't get it.
Yeah.
Just what it is this year. Okay. That was fun. And we'll get into that when we get a little closer to what we think is actually going to happen. From Mike, did Kenny Pickett play well enough to get draft picks this offseason, making Tanner McKee second string in 2025? That was the most stress-free game in a long time. Time to rest up and hope for a Commanders rubber match.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I don't know how much you would get for him, but I would certainly do it. Yeah, I mean, we both felt like we'd be okay with going into the season with Tanner's number 2. So you certainly, after what we saw Sunday and with another year of experience going into year 3, I'd be fine with him as a number 2. If I get a pick,
I'll do it. Next question from Bill. I have to ask, why won't Kellen/Nick consider using Saquon as the QB for the tush push? Saquon's documented quads are just as powerful as Jalen's and 10 times more than Pickett or McKee.
I think Jalen likes getting those touchdowns.
I mean, Jalen's really good at it. You don't screw that up. I guess the question is when you have Kenny Pickett out there with broken ribs, I think the big part of it is accepting the snap. You're under center.
Yeah.
You're not in shotgun. You can run Wildcat and catch a shotgun snap.
Right.
But being under center in that exchange,
totally new thing for him.
It's different.
I would not mess that up.
Yeah. Okay. Next one from Joe. Hey guys, love the pod. Happy New Year. I get what the NFL is trying to do with these division games late in the season, but it seems the Eagles are always playing pretty meaningless Week 18 games against a division rival. I know technically last year had some sort of meaning, but still. I want to get back to where all 6 division games have a lot of meaning, and I think that means moving them off the last 3 weeks of the season. Thoughts?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and you never know. The Eagles just happen to play in a division where, I mean, Washington and the Giants have been bad for a while, and Washington's good this year, but I don't think they're going to change it. I just think they like having those games at the end of the year. I see what he's saying, and but I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, I don't either. I like the potential.
Yeah.
And I think
I like the theory behind it.
Yeah, for me, the potential almost outweighs. I get what he's saying because it does stink to have a division game that really means nothing.
Yeah.
But the potential being there is fun.
And you could also end up with a non-division game that's meaningless.
Which is probably more palatable is what he's saying. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to change. Next question from Melissa. Hi, Dave and Rube. I grew up in New Jersey, but I'm now based in California by Half Moon Bay, deep in Niners territory.
You ever been there, Half Moon Bay?
I have not.
Beautiful.
Listening to your podcast helps me feel
not far from Stanford.
Like I hear all the Eagles.
I bet Tanner McKee's been at Half Moon Bay. Okay, I'm sorry.
Listening to your podcast helps me feel like I hear all the Eagles info my parents get on TV in New Jersey. It's a lot easier to be an out-of-state Eagles fan with podcasts like yours. It wasn't like that when I moved 20 years ago. Your podcast is my favorite because of your good energy. My question for you. The stats say that running backs are likely to fall off after having a high number of touches in a season.
Yeah.
With hopefully 4 postseason games this year, Saquon could exceed 400 touches by the end of the season. What do you think the impact of this high workload will be next year? Saquon seems to be such an awesome guy, and I want him to continue to do really well for as long as possible in Philadelphia. Also from Melissa, if you ever need recommendations for where to eat or hike around Half Moon Bay, happy to share good spots.
Yeah, I had a friend who was the cross-country coach at University of San Francisco, and we were out there for a game, and she took me to Half Moon Bay for we went to dinner right on the water. Man, it was beautiful, and I wish I could remember the name of the restaurant. I think it was the Half Moon Bay Inn. But yeah, it's southwest of San Francisco, right on the water, near Palo Alto. A beautiful spot. You'd love it out there. But what was the question? I know you didn't ask about Half Moon Bay restaurant recommendations.
Saquon workload.
Yeah,
going.
It's a concern, and that's a great point. That it's the year after with so many running backs when they have now 345 is like if that's what he ends with, it's not a huge number. So I mean, it's what 21 carries a game, and touches would be a little higher. He doesn't have a ton of catches, but so many guys the next year is when they have that drop off.
And look, he's been good after contact, but the offensive line is keeping a lot of contact off of him.
Sure, and I think that's what I think he could easily be an exception just because the O-line is so good, and I think physically he's just a unique specimen. I mean, he's so strong, he's so powerful. You never see him get up slow, like rarely, do you see him? I think he's smart about you're going to get hit, but he's smart about taking contact when he can control it. And yeah, a lot of times he's not getting hit at all, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And that's why running backs don't get those huge contracts because you don't really know what you're going to get over a period of years.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. One more question. We're over the hour mark, but I want to get this one in from Jeremy.
I want more Emery bashing.
You'll like this one, I think. Hey guys, looking forward to the playoffs. What a great time of year. Rube, I'm eager to hear your top 10 albums for the year. You said you even have a top 100 list. I'm curious of your process for how you rate an album. Do you have a certain amount of times you need to listen? Does it have to make you feel a certain way, etc.? I've been a fan of the new Jack White, Vampire Weekend, Middle Kids, and Father John Misty albums this year. Thanks for the great pod.
I don't really like that Vampire Weekend. I know a lot of people do, but it's not in my top 100 actually. The other three are. How about Thursday? I'll get my top. I'll share my top 10.
Okay, you don't have it ready?
It's on my other laptop.
Oh, okay.
My laptop died, and on deadline during the game.
How about the process though? What's your process? Any specific?
So the way I listen to music, and this is going to be boring to most people, but
with your ears,
I have a long commute, as I've probably mentioned way too many times, and it's on normal days it takes me an hour and 15 minutes to get here, an hour 15 minutes to get back. Here being the Wells Fargo Center, NovaCare Center, sports complex area. So I put all my new music on a flash drive, and then I keep that in my car in the USB port, and I put it on random. So I have like 2,000 songs, 3,000. As the year goes on, I have more and more songs. And once it's on random, I'm getting like a little bit of everything. And I have a notebook sitting on the passenger seat, and I take notes on what I'm hearing. While you're driving? I really love this new album by Second Grade.
Hold on, time out. While you're driving, you're taking notes.
Well, no, I'm not while I'm actually driving, but like when I get to a red light or something, I'll write down, something. I'll get my laptop out on 95.
That's terrifying.
No, I'm not doing it while I'm driving.
Okay.
But, I mean, have you ever been on 95 at rush hour? Like,
you're not doing much driving anyway.
You're not doing much driving anyway. So
it's interesting that you listen to it on like a shuffle.
Yeah.
Because
Rube Radio.
I'm not that I'm questioning the process. Curious. I typically like to listen to an album.
Well, so
front to back.
I'll do that. Like the other day I was listening to this band I'd never heard of called Jade Hairpins.
Okay.
All right. And I really liked the one song. So I switch it off random and just listen to that album straight through. And that way you kind of get a feel for the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Stay safe on those roads, everyone. Especially if you see Rube taking notes on 95. You got any final words here?
Yeah. Happy birthday to everybody.
If you have a question for us, it's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. The QR code is there for another second. We'll remind you again, if you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you next year. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.